Hey everybody, it's Angela and I'm back with another process video, and this one is for SaCrafters. And I'm going to be using this photo today of my two granddaughters, and I wanted to show it up close because I changed this a lot. I was inspired by Olga, and she is the owner of Little Blue Button Stamps. And she has been making these wonderful photography images, very fantastical and beautiful images, and it just really inspired me to do some filtering and layers and add some of those sparkles and kind of make a fantastical picture. So this isn't the colors that this picture originally was. So I have changed it up, and I just wanted something fantastical, kind of magical, and just to play with the different colors. So this is going to be different than my normal color scheme. I am going to do kind of my same mixed media background, and I'm going to be using the distress inks today, and I'm using a variety of colors: the worn lipstick, the abandoned coral, spiced marmalade, faded jeans, and I forget which purple it is. I think it's the Concord grape. And I'm going to just be kind of mimicking the colors in that photograph. And the photograph is just of my granddaughters playing in the creek, and it was kind of dark, so the photo wasn't the greatest, you know, because it's really shaded there under the trees, and they were just enjoying throwing rocks and splashing around. And so it was kind of a magical moment, and so I wanted to kind of make it into something a little more special. And since the image was dark, you know, it didn't really hurt to play around with it. It actually made it, you know, look a little more special. So here you can see I'm just using the packaging technique, and I put the purple, now I'm putting some blue, and I'm not making a rainbow, but I'm kind of graduating the colors from blue to purple to pink to yellow. And that is just watercolor paper that I cut down to 12 by 12. And now I'm taking the same colors and I'm just smacking the dabber onto the background paper to make a splat. And I like how that splatters it, and it kind of mimics those kind of starbursts that I put on the photograph. That was kind of what I was going for, at least when I did that. And so I'm really liking how the background is coming together. You know, it looks kind of cluttery and messy right now, but I think it's going to tone down once I put my picture and other items on it. So I'm just getting it nice and dry, and then I'm going to be using several different SaCrafters products. I took out quite a few in the beginning because I didn't know which ones I was going to use, but I settled on some of her chipboard floral and foliage pieces, and then also a wood sentiment, and you'll see that here in just a minute. And I had played around with some of the chipboard pieces in a previous video, and I had used the distress inks on it, and when you put the distress inks onto the craft colored chipboard, it's darker colors, so I knew that if I use those inks I would get a nice kind of silhouette, and that's really kind of what I wanted, a dark silhouette against those kind of purples and blues. So here are the chipboard pieces. I love that one. It has kind of a fairyland look to it. I have a few of these little kind of starbursty flowers left over from a previous layout that I did, but I don't actually wind up using these this time. But I go ahead and take them out because I'm not sure at this point which ones I'm going to use. So I'm just kind of, you know, just kind of seeing how they fit around the image. And I have these ones that are just some kind of leaves. And I put, when I did my layering on that photo, I used Adobe Photoshop, and I put some overlay images of some trees, and those are some masks that I made for Scrap Girls, and I can link that in the description box if you're interested in getting those. So I used some like tree leaf masks, so I thought that these chipboard pieces would really fit in well with the kind of leaves that are around the edge of that photo, the mask that I used. So I'm really liking those, and I like them kind of, you know, kind of cascading down like that and curving around the corner of my photo. I have this sentiment that says precious moment, and at first I think I'm going to use it, but it was a little bit too big for what I was going for, so I wind up going with something smaller here. But I just kind of take it out, and when Sa sends these sentiments, she leaves them still kind of attached in the background chipboard so that they don't get damaged. And it doesn't take too long, you just kind of have to poke them out a little bit. But it was just a little bit too big, and I knew I had this dream, and the dream isn't chipboard, it's wood, but I like the dimension, the difference in dimension that gives along with the chipboard. So those are the 3 items that I'm going to use. And then I'm also going to just use my die cutting machine to make a bunch of flowers and other items, and you'll see those here in a little bit. But I had to leave and go to the farm, and this is what I do on my weekends. So a lot of times I get interrupted in my crafting, and I go to the farm and I do stuff like this. And me and my hubby, we harvested this. He was driving the combine, and then I was helping unload, so it was just the 2 of us that day. And so I drive the forklift and put the grain bags on there, and we just harvested all that grain. At least it was only 105 degrees that day. So anyhow, so then I kind of get back to my crafting. So a lot of times if you sense that there's a little disconnect in my videos, that's probably why, because sometimes I don't do them all in one sitting. So when I get back to crafting, I go back and, like I said, I know that when I put the distress inks on the craft colored chipboard, it's a little bit darker, so that's what I wanted. And so I decided to go with that. And I'm just using some of the purples, the blue Stormy Sky, and I think the Blueprint blue to give those kind of a silhouette. And then when you use the new Distress Oxide inks, they're more opaque, and they will go over the top of that and stay a little more true to color. So I really wanted some of that purple color just to give a variation. And I zoom in here so you can kind of see, isn't that pretty? It just kind of brings a pretty purple tint to the edges of some of those. But using the direct from the ink pad to the chipboard, I was getting a few lines, so I just switched to a makeup sponge. And I just thought that was so pretty, just to get those little touches of purple on the tips like that, and so quick and easy to do. Yeah, I just loved it. Now the dream I didn't want to do exactly the same way, because I didn't want it to kind of fade in with all those other items. I wanted it to stand out a little bit. So I'm using some of the yellow oxide ink, and I think that was a spiced marmalade, and this I think is the worn lipstick. I don't know, I couldn't see it there. It flashed across my editing screen a little bit too fast. But just a little pink, purple, and yellow, just to make it lighter so that it wouldn't blend in too much with the foliage. And just cleaning up my desk here and getting back into this layout. And I really love how that kind of is a darker silhouette on that left-hand side. And so I get out my Big Shot because I know I want to add some flowers and other items along with those chipboard pieces. I grab some old crate paper, and this one is, oh, I don't know the name of it. They're both really old. The pebbles, I only use that gold color. But yeah, some really old crate paper collections, and just find matching colors that go with the inks kind of that I used and with my photograph. And the dyes I'm going to use are this Doris dye, a diamond dyes of those deer, and then some of the alterations and Sizzix dyes in various flowers and foliage and butterflies. So I just take those papers, I die cut a bunch out, way more than I actually need, but I'll just put those in my die cut bin. And I'm just going to play around with this a little bit to kind of see how I want it to be positioned. I wind up using a little bit more of the lavender and the kind of darker purple here on this, with just touches of the gold flowers and the pink. So I kind of stick more with the purple tones on this layout. So it's a real, you know, kind of a departure for me color-wise, but I really had fun with it. So I'm just trimming down that one swirl because I didn't need quite so big of a piece. And then I know I want to bring a touch of that kind of gold color over to the left-hand side in those flowers. Then I kind of have that darker purple and that lighter purple I put at the top along with the gold flower. And then I'm just going to have a few butterflies. So I'm really liking that, and I also want to put one of those little deer in there, the diamond dyed deers. I wanted to use one of the bucks, so I'm just going to use that darker one kind of as a silhouette there because they were, you know, kind of in the woods down by the creek. So I'm just going to mount my photo on more of that kind of dark purple, just to make it pop on, you know, kind of on the right hand and top edge, so it wouldn't blend in quite so much with the background. And I think about using some thread. I do use a tiny little bit under my flower clusters in the bottom left hand side, but I didn't really have threads that matched all that great to my colors, so I don't use too much of it this time. I'm going to go ahead and put my photo down. Because I'm using chipboard and wood pieces, I didn't want to pop up my photo as well because I thought that would give too much dimension. So I'm actually going to just adhere my photograph direct to the background paper, and then the chipboard and the wood dream on top of that is going to give me plenty of dimension. So I just kind of position that so you can still see the splat kind of pink showing at that kind of upper right hand corner and the gold splat on the bottom right hand corner. I still wanted my little splatters to kind of show. My purple one does get covered up quite a bit. I think it might still be peeking out at the end, but at least I have several of them still showing. Using a little bit of hot glue to adhere these other items on, especially that dream, because it's going over several layers of chipboard and paper and paint and photograph. This way I know it'll stay on there. And I just line it up with the bottom of my photograph. So I'm liking how that's coming along. I like that the dream, you can really see it against that foliage, but it's not so bright that it's kind of in your face, you know. It's still really integrated. And so I put my thread kind of there at the bottom corner, and I'm going to put my flowers on top. I put a couple of the gold ones just to make that pop a little bit. Put one of the dark purple ones in it. Put one of these light lavender or purple foliage pieces in the cluster as well. And that'll make the darker deer pop against that lighter color. And I press the deer down after I put the hot glue, but I don't press it down really hard, so the glue kind of gives it a little lift and a little bit more dimension. I'm going to adhere a couple of these butterflies up here at the top. I use one pink one, the kind of lavender and a gold. One of the dark purple flowers up there. And I really love how this is coming together. I love the colors. It's really going to be something different when you're flipping through their album. I just put a few more flowers, and I didn't like that bright pink on top of the yellow. I thought that was just a little bit too much. So I go through my other flowers here and find one of the lavender ones, because I didn't have any other of that bright pink down in that corner. So now I'm just removing some of my hot glue strands. And what I do is I take my heat gun and I just kind of hit it a little bit with the heat gun, and that gets rid of any little tiny glue strands that, you know, I haven't seen. And then what I do is I go ahead, I want to put some stickles on the layout, but before I do, I want to go ahead and adhere this to my background paper, because I know that once I put stickles on, I won't be able to like turn it over like I'm doing right now and putting the tape on the back, because it'll be wet. So I decide to go ahead and get this mounted first and then put my stickles on last. And I have a little bit of trouble with this. I'm using this super sticky double-sided tape, score tape here, because I know that's going to hold it down nice and flat to my background paper. But the problem with this is that, you know, I almost always mess it up, and I do right here. You can see I go to do it, I get it all matched on the bottom and the two sides, and the top is really off, and I'm like, I must have measured the watercolor paper when I cut it in the first place. So I'm like, how am I going to fix this? I don't have another sheet of that purple because I cut the other one up to make my embellishments. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to trim this white up. So I just kind of lift it from my background paper right there. But that's super sticky tape, so I can't lift it enough to get that matte underneath. So I just carefully take my X-Acto knife and cut through just that white layer and take it off, and it works perfectly. I was so happy. I saved the day. So yeah, I just trimmed that to fit. And now I can go ahead and get my stickles, and I don't have a lot of colors of stickles, but I have some of that glitter glue from Michaels, and I don't use it enough, so I pull out some of this darker color to put in the center of my darker flowers, and then I use this pink color, which is an actual stickles, I think, to put in the center of these kind of lavender flowers. I try to use this other kind of iridescent stickles, but it's just, there's not much left in it, and I couldn't get it to come out. It was just taking too long to get to the tip. So I had this other Michaels glitter glue that's just kind of a clear glitter, and I'm going over the sparkles that I made in the photograph, and I'm putting just a little bit of these clear glitter glue in the center of each of those sparkles. And then I'm just going around and putting little tiny dots of these clear sparkles just all around the page, just like little splatters, just to give it another kind of magical touch. And that is my completed layout, and I really enjoyed doing this. It was so much fun. Loved using the colors, loved playing with my photograph and just changing it up and having a little fun with it. You can see my little sparkles there. They're kind of hard to see on the photo and the video, but in person it does have a kind of sparkle to it. You can see my SaCrafters products that I use there, and I will go ahead and link all those down below. And if you use the code AngelaFans when you order, you can get a 10% discount off your orders of $30 or more in Sa's shop. So I will definitely put all that information down below. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions or anything, just leave me a comment down below and I will try my best to answer it. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!